Using Wi-Fi without NordVPN could mean sharing your private stuff with more people than you think. NordVPN. Online security starts with a click.
The world's most advanced cold wallet for the new generation of cryptocurrency lovers. Descent.
Hey, Tom. Hey, Alex. Thank you so much for making yourself available once again. We did a video, a 90-minute video, looking at really what's happening in Europe and the Federal Reserve and the WEF. And in this video, which is mostly going to be an odyssey after the first few minutes or so, which on YouTube, we're going to be talking about the United Kingdom. And we are recording this on the 29th of July, 2022. And things are so exciting because we've got an election in the Tory party between two political titans. You know, I'm thinking Harold Wilson versus Margaret Thatcher. That sort of caliber of politician, or Peter Shaw versus Tony Benn. These are people who are trained, who are masterful in the game of politics, and who put Putin and Xi and Modi in the shade. They throw them in the shade. But by the way, you need to check out Alex's work on theduran.com and Tom Luongo's work on tomluongo.me. I'll have all the links in the description below. Where do we go?
So
where do we go?
Certified PhD in geography, Liz Truss versus Rothschild banker Rishi Sunak.
That's right. And on the other side, we got Keir Starmer. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. Well, can I say this? There's never been a situation in Britain quite like this one. No. First of all, the thing to say is that, you know, putting aside the political battle between Truss versus Sunak versus Starmer, which will no doubt come to, the situation in Britain is very bad, and it is getting worse. Now, I live in an affluent part of North London, and just a few hundred meters from my house, yards from my house, there is a regular food bank now. Wow. With people queuing. You're seeing them. I mean, you know, it's not something that people talk about very much in the international media, but you are seeing that there is a cost of living crisis, as it's euphemistically called here in Britain, which is on an unprecedented ferocity. Whereas also a sense that the economy itself is unsustainably imbalanced, that the government's finances, the public finances, are in a terrible shape. There's also a sense that the trade figures are extremely weak. Tom, you're probably the best person who understands all of this better than me. The tax burden is the greatest it has ever been in British history. It is higher than it was in the 1940s, directly after the Second World War, when Attlee's government had to repay masses of debts accumulated since the start of the 20th century, and was also trying to set up the welfare state. All of that. So it's an incredibly difficult, very tough economic situation. And
Alex, just to paint, I'd like to say something, because I work with the poorest of the poor as a social worker. And you know, one of the things, I don't know, Tom, if you know this, but I'm letting people know, but you know that when you go into a store to buy some high-end luxury good and they have these security tags, so you can't take it out without an alarm going off, they're doing that on blocks of cheese.
Absolutely, that's entirely correct. That is exactly right. And can I just say something else? I've recently, as you both know, become a parent, and of course I'm now confronting the realities of childcare in Britain, because, you know, I have twins. The cost of childcare is completely out of control. All I can say is that, you know, unless you are fortunate, then I mean you're going to be facing major financial problems, because nurseries, kindergartens, those sort of things are in a terrible state. The people there are basically are paid ludicrous sums, starvation wages, for doing incredibly hard and demanding work. And these are the pressures that the British people are under. And of course, come the autumn, you know, Tom was telling us in the previous video that we did about how everything's going to come together in September. Well, you know, we're looking forward towards September, and there's going to be another monumental increase in fuel prices. I mean, we're talking about, it was 50% rise in April. It looks like it's going to be well over 100% above that, repeating that this autumn. Yeah.
A friend of mine was telling me he's got a little terraced house, 3-bedroom terrace house. He said, my energy bill has gone up from £150 a month to £600 a month. And who knows what it's going to be come September. And then there's there isn't just a tax bill, which is horrendous. I didn't know it was that high. But also the legislation that this government is rolling out, it is so tyrannical. I mentioned in the previous video about the schools bill. The schools bill will not just prevent home educators from home educating, it'll also kill off religious schools.
Yes.
It'll centralize. We won't have. So if you're a Christian, you want to send your kids to a Christian school or a Muslim school or whatever, you won't have that. They'll have to go to state academies where you have government. It's like Soviet Union.
Welcome to
WF
French WF. Well, French communism. This is like I hate to keep beating that dead horse, but it's just true. And I feel for everybody. I have unbelievable amounts of sympathy for y'all because we don't have that problem here in Florida. So part of the reason why I'm in Florida is because of the 50 states in the union. We have basically the best education freedom in the country.
But better than that, you have a politician who's capable, who's smart, savvy, and is a sovereigntist who actually cares for Florida, versus what we have are people that are puppets of the WEF.
Well,
because there's no difference between what the Labour Party, Labour's not going to do it. Nobody's got any solutions.
This is why y'all need an Oliver Cromwell moment. It's just that simple. Like I've been saying this for weeks now. Like
that's the point I was leading up to. In the middle of this crisis, which is as worse than any I have known. And I can remember the 1970s when things were also very difficult in Britain. The 1980s, early 1980s, they were very difficult in Britain.
Absolutely.
But we had real politicians, and they were presenting ideas, and they were coming up with alternatives, and they were giving us potential ways to go forward. And people were being presented with choices, and we could go one way or we could go the other. If you were in the early 1980s in Britain, I'm sure Rich remembers these times. I mean, you could go with Margaret Thatcher, or you could go with Tony Benn, who was becoming powerful figure in the Labour Party at that time. So there were choices, there were options, there were ideas. Britain was brimming with ideas. The political class today in Britain is a homogenized, desiccated desert. I mean, there is no one of ability.
Fully skinned, there's no fat in it.
There's no fat in it. I mean, the idea that someone like Liz Truss could rise above the level of a junior minister is, almost risible.
I mean, it is really quite amazing that she was even defense secretary in the first place. Well, she's a complete moron. The woman is like, I mean, seriously, I'm sorry, but she's dumb. Like, and it's amazing. But guess what? That's what Klaus likes. He wants you to eat the bugs, and the best way for you to eat the bugs is to bankrupt you with bad leadership. Like it's just that simple. And it's so sad watching this happen, because it doesn't matter what country we talk about. We can talk about the Poles, we can talk about the Spanish, we can talk about the Italians, we can talk about the Germans, we can talk about the French, we can talk about the British, we can talk about the Americans. The same disease over and over and over again.
Well, can I just say, not the Americans, in the sense that you still have choices. I mean, you still have a DeSantis, you still have a Trump.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Maybe.